So today I'm going to do a nasotracheal sectioning. So before I begin, I always check the charts before I go into the patient's room. So once I get in the patient's room, I always want to wash my hands before I help the patient. And then I'm going to dry my hands, and then I'll apply the appropriate gloving. And for nasal suctioning, I can put on a gown, face shield, just to be precautious, just in case if something gets splashed on me that I do not want on me, like blood or anything like that, any mucus from the lungs. So when I begin, I'm going to go ahead and get everything ready, like my tray, my suction tray, and so I have my lubricant, my sterile gloves. So these I'm just going to get ready, and I'm just going to open it like that. That way it's easy to get to when I need it. And then I'll take my sterile water and pour into the tray with the catheter to sterilize the catheter. And then when I got that all ready, then I'm going to go ahead and assess the patient before I stick the suctioning tube in. So I'm going to go ahead and do the vital signs. I'm going to check their breath sounds, see which lung is, see where it's kind of filled at, if there's diminished lung sounds in one area. So when I'm ready, so I can go ahead and hyperinflate their lungs so I can apply the oxygen source onto the patient. And then I'm going to always make sure this bag is inflated when it's going, before I apply it to the patient. That way they are getting the appropriate amount of oxygen. Then I'm going to get my vacuum ready. And so I'm going to occlude the hole. I'm going to make sure my tubing is not kinked or anything, and I'm going to occlude it to see where it is set. So it's reading up to about 160, so that's just too much to be in the lungs. So I'm going to turn it down. And check it again. Alright, so it's at 140, so that's an okay thing because you don't want to go more than 150. So I'm just going to set this tubing just so that way I have it ready for me. And when I'm ready, I'm going to remove these gloves, take them over there, and then I'm going to wash my hands, dry them really good, and then I'm going to apply on my sterile gloves. So when I'm ready. And with the sterile gloves, you don't want to have anything touch them, you don't want anything rubbing against them, just so that way it stays sterile. You always want to have one hand that's sterile. Alright, once those are on, I'm going to take my tubing from my suction kit here, and I'm going to hold it with my left hand, since that's my non-dominant. I'm going to grab with my dominant hand the catheter, and I'm going to place it into the tubing, and you can start to hear a noise. And so what you can do is you can glue that hole to make sure it's suctioning properly. And so what I'm going to do first is suction up some sterile water to make sure it suctions up okay. And then I'm going to lubricate the end of the catheter. I'll lubricate the end of that. Then when I'm ready, I will remove the oxygen, set that aside, and then if I don't have a nasal trumpet, we're just going to have to go straight in. So I'm always going to check to make sure there's nothing wrong with the nasal airway, make sure there's nothing that I'm going to hit right when I go in. So I'm going to go ahead and slowly insert it into the nose, and then when I get to a spot where it stops, I can have the patient cough or even breathe in, just so that way I can get it down to the appropriate place. Once I'm down in the appropriate place, I can occlude it and make sure everything that I need is suctioning up and going straight to the catcher over there. So I'm going to slowly take this out. You cannot be in there more than 15 seconds. And if I need to go again, I always need to re-sterilize this after it's been in and out into the open air. So I need to clean it off with sterile water, and then I can reapply it. So when I am done, I can wrap this up like this in my hand, very carefully not to lose it, then remove it with my sterile gloves. and dispose of it. So this here, I can just set that back down, and then I'm gonna wash my hands again after I have done the suctioning, and I'm gonna apply the gloves on again, and I'm gonna make sure this is shut off, and put this here, and then I'm gonna apply oxygen back onto the patient, just that way I get hyperinflate the lungs again, so that way they're not losing any oxygen. And so when I'm done with that, with everything, I always need to reassess the patient. So I need to always check their vital signs, see if they're okay, check the lung sounds, make sure there's no abnormalities in there. And when I'm ready, I can remove everything, make sure my gown is off before I leave the room, all my gloves, anything that I have used or touched is disposed of, and then I'd wash my hands and then chart on the patient's chart so that way we have know what's been going on.